Scotland and Portugal battled to a 0-0 draw, and Cristiano Ronaldo was not happy at the end,
No,
Jules.
not happy at all. The referee didn't allow last corner to be taken by Portugal. There was a few other things before that. Cristiano growing frustrated by the fact that one Portugal didn't play well. Two, didn't create much even for him. There was this free kick in the first half that Nuno mentioned. Him were trying to play short, but there was a misunderstanding, and it was an absolute mess. So not a good night, I think, for Cristiano, for Portugal, for Roberto Martinez, who did some few weird changes again, or it's only too late in my opinions. But I thought, I thought Scotland played well, and I know it's only a point. But I thought they were brave in the way they're trying to play, move the ball. McTominay had an incredible chance early on with a header that I should have scored. So for the frustration from the Portuguese, which you can understand, I thought there was a lot of positives from Scotland.
Can we just make a rule? This is a memo to IFAB, just to avoid all this controversy. You know how, like in the NFL, like a game cannot end on a defensive penalty?
Yeah.
Can we just make a rule that even if you're beyond the 4 minutes or however many minutes of time added on, the game can't end with a corner kick?
Yeah. I agree with you.
Just to avoid this chaos, this controversy.
Yeah, the ball should be in
unhappy
play.
Cristiano.
Yeah,
It's just not a good look.
No, I agree. Gab, the Premier League was supposed to have an emergency meeting following the verdict in the APT case brought by Manchester City against the Premier League, but that's not happening now.
Yeah, it was supposed to be happening today as we speak, but no. They had different committee meetings. Basically, this case is too complicated. They need to pay more money to lawyers and nerds to go and
to explain
and figure this out, to explain this out, to even have a plan about how they're going to approach the next steps. It's complicated. Both sides accusing each other of leaking, counter leaking. I think the strength. I don't think the sky's falling. I think the Premier League's going to be fine longer term. But I just want to underscore the strength of the Premier League has been based since its inception on the fact that you had 20 people who, if they argued, it was behind closed doors, and that served them well. And ultimately, they always reached an agreement. Now they're bringing in lawyers. It's clearly the Premier League is more divided and more polarized. And cynics will say, well, it's not really divided because there's one team over here, Man City, maybe with a little help from Aston Villa, and everybody else elsewhere. I don't know. But it's not a good look. Yeah. They're running a business. They are the shareholders in that business. The shareholders have to be united, and they have to find a way forward on this. And maybe there is no way forward because, look, in the end, and there's the 115 cases looming in the background, in the end, if you are illegally inflating, if it was proven that you are illegally inflating sponsorships with related parties or associated parties or whatever, then you are cheating. Yeah. Right? It's as simple as that. If that is proven, and it has not been proven yet, right? There's no escaping this.
Yeah.
Arsenal beat Vålerenga 4-1 in the Women's Champions League, but Jules Jonas Eidevall has resigned.
Yeah, he did resign after the defeat against Chelsea. On the back already the defeat against Bayern Munich in the Champions League as well, a few days before that. I didn't see it coming. He was under pressure. Obviously, he needed result to turn things around quickly. Credit to him to have realized that maybe he didn't feel like he could turn things around. But often managers, I think, don't want to resign and, want to get sacked or stay in the job. So Renée Slegers, who was his assistant, took over, and she did really well with that first win in the Champions League against Vålerenga. They needed that massively at home as well. So now we see if they can continue that form and turn away this season. Chelsea co-sporting directors Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart gave a rare interview to the Telegraph. Gab, what did you learn?
Okay, I learned very little.
Okay,
it's a long-term project, that it's not about PSR, as evidenced by the fact that when the rules changed, they continued giving out these long things. They have a different approach. Chelsea need to be in the Champions League. Conor Gallagher is not about this whole pure profit motive because they turned down an offer from another academy product, which, by the way, is a stupid argument. I mean, Conor Gallagher, you either had to man up, give him a long contract, or you had to sell him. That's all you have to say. Yeah. You don't have to. There's no point making comparison between him and somebody else in the academy who's got 4 years to go. Look, I've said before, I love the fact that sporting directors of football, recruitment guys are not held accountable. And I love the fact that this year we're seeing more and more of them speaking, right? We saw the guy at Newcastle speak.
Yeah,
Paul
Paul
Mitchell. We've seen others. I think it's important that they speak. I wish, again, they might have been a little bit more detailed and forthcoming. I don't know on what basis they asked the questions. I hope these weren't pre-approved questions beforehand. But it's good. The more dialogue you have,
Yeah.
one of the most
agree.
toxic things is when you have a club like Chelsea or Manchester United or any other club where the only person doing the talking is the manager, and he's asked questions about stuff that are not his competency. There should be you're part of a team, right?
Absolutely.
You should all be speaking.
I agree.
We touched on this Monday, but Nigeria, as expected, ended up boycotting their
Wow.
African Cup of Nations qualifier against Libya after they were made to endure a logistical nightmare, 14 hours in the airport, flying to a different airport, blah, blah, blah. Jules, CAF say the game won't be replayed, and they'll make a decision on what to do
Right.
in due course.
Good luck with that one, because from a Nigeria point of view, you can't be treated that way. It's not. This is not possible. It's not fair. It's not right. And good for them to have decided to boycott that game and just not accept the situation. For Libya, well, you had an opponent that I know didn't show up for the game, but I mean, who is it to blame for all this like logistic nightmare? Really, somebody clearly in Libya said, you know what, direct them to another airport, make them stand in there for so long with no food, no water, no Wi-Fi, nothing. So, CAF would give the match won to Libya, to Nigeria.
sure?
Is it a draw?
Oh.
No, that's what I mean. What are they going to do? I've never seen a story like that ever before. So we don't even have a previews that could kind of guide this. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, it's real. It's a tough one because you don't want to set a precedent like this, because this
true.
time it's 14 hours, and next time it's somebody, well, bumpy flight, or
Yeah.
the hotel was dirty, or the bus got stuck in traffic and they knew it, and blah blah blah, or people banging pots and pans outside our hotel. Like, in terms of the group, Nigeria on 7 points, Benin on 6, Rwanda on 5, Libya on 1. Whichever way this goes, it could move the needle. The top two go
Massively.
through. We assume it's going to be Nigeria and one of the other two, Benin or Rwanda, but it's not a foregone conclusion.
No.
I can't imagine an AFCON without the Super Eagles, although I think that I've already lived through one in my lifetime, so
bet.
maybe I should be able to imagine it.
Ben Chilwell is our favourite at Chelsea, we know that. And Antonio Conte is still a big fan. Would Napoli offer him a where, Gab?
Yeah, on loan, and with Chelsea paying 80% of his wages, sure, why not? He is a big fan. I think if Conte decides to go back three on a more permanent basis, McFly, what about this? Conte is a big fan. If Chelsea decide to cover most of his enormous wages, then on loan, maybe this could happen. Maybe good for him, some shop window. I think he is a good fit if you play if you play the back three that Conte wants. He already has two left backs there, Mateus Oliveira and Mario Rui. But fortunately, I think certainly Mario Rui, and I think possibly Oliveira too, they're both Uncle George guys. And Uncle George has a lot of friends at Chelsea right now, and he can solve a lot of issues for Chelsea. So, maybe there is a way to it. I just think it's grotesque that this guy's not playing, because you can say he's not good enough for Chelsea or whatever. He doesn't fit the plan, the project.
He's still a good player.
He's still a good player who can help many clubs. So I think in January, in January, Chilwell will be playing football.
Yeah.
Whether at Napoli, at Chelsea, or somewhere else. Most likely, I think somewhere else in the Premier League. Benjamin Mendy's lawsuit against Manchester City continues, Jules. Now, in 2021, the club suspended him, stopped paying him after he was accused of a series of rapes. He was later acquitted of all counts of rape. And this is not drop charges. This is actually acquitted in a court of law. 5 counts the first time plus 2 subsequent counts. So now he's saying, guys, you stopped paying me. I want my money.
Yeah, it was
£11 million.
11 million pounds, that's right. Him and his agent, Mesa India, is saying that Omar Barada, who was then the City CEO before moving to United, I cannot say to them, listen, if he is cleared and found innocent, Then we will give the money back that we haven't paid him for during all this process, the investigation, the court trials, etc., etc. Now my brother said, no, I never said that. Certainly there's nothing on paper. And that's at the heart of everything. The club said that he broke lockdown rules, for example. He said, I was not the only one. There was a lot of players, including the club captain, and he named them. So he put everybody in the source.
Okay, when he said club captain, does he mean the club captain at the time, or does he mean the current club captain?
Well, I think he meant the one at the time.
And the one at the time was Fernandinho.
So, I mean,
the current club captain is Kyle Walker.
Okay, maybe it's Kyle Walker then. But I thought he was maybe the one at the time. But then he says that basically a lot of players were also breaking the rules. He also explained that because he had no wages paid by City anymore, he had no money to pay for his lawyers. So Sterling, Mahrez, and Bernardo Silva helped him out.
Can you say something? Who is his financial advisor that I don't know. You've been a professional footballer for 10 years.
Yeah.
You've played for Manchester City. You've played for big clubs.
Massive wages.
On massive wages. And then I know it's tough. You don't get a salary for 2 years. But all of a sudden you can't pay your lawyers and you have to borrow money.
I know.
Who's his financial advisor?
I know. That's a good question. That is a good
question. But I don't know how you feel about this. My take on this is, and people have drawn comparisons to Mason Greenwood, who continued being paid. But Mason Greenwood never went to trial.
Yeah.
Obviously, the charges were
definitely
dropped there. For me, the question is, at what point have you breached your contract with Manchester City?
Mm-hmm.
If you breach your contract because they said he wasn't in condition to play, partly because you have this case where you are charged with rape, and you breach your contract and you're charged with rape because you put yourself in a situation by breaking lockdown rules and club rules where you can then be charged with rape. I'm assuming this is the Man City line of defense.
Yeah, it would be. Well, it is, yeah.
It seems extraordinary to me that City would let this go to court at this stage rather than reaching some sort of settlement for him.
Yeah, I agree. Roma host Inter this weekend in Serie A, and it sounds like their owner, the Friedkin family, are going to face a rough ride, Gav. Is this just about the sacking of Mourinho and then De Rossi, or there's more?
No, it's a lot more. I think they're really angry with him. It goes beyond Mourinho and De Rossi. It's the constant turnover of officials at the club. It's the way that, they never appear in the city. Now, they issued a communique where they said, look, you've spent a ton of money on this club, and we're grateful for that. But running a football club isn't just about chucking money at it. It's also about making the right decisions.
Yeah.
It's also about being respectful of the city and the fan base and engaging in the right way. They don't feel this has happened. I think certainly the De Rossi sacking doesn't help. And before that, the Mourinho sacking that they were also angry about.
Yeah.
So against Roma this weekend, the Curva, where the Ultras sit, it's gonna stay empty, and they're only gonna walk in 15 minutes into the game, and then they're gonna do a silent protest during the match. We'll see how that works out, but it's a warning shot and a reminder as well for Everton fans. I don't know that they're bad owners, but they certainly run their club differently from most owners, and let's face it, most American owners as well. Opta have published a ranking of the world's top 10 domestic leagues. Jules, it's based on their power rankings, which I'm guessing is a formula that the nerds at Opta put together. So
yeah.
I don't think there's any bias or judgment in this.
No.
I need to run it past you to see if it passes the Jules test.
Okay.
Now, they don't just rank them, they also give them a number, right?
Okay.
So quickly in first place, we have the Premier League, 87.9. Joint second, Serie A and the Bundesliga. Joint fourth, Ligue 1 and La Liga.
It's okay.
Both on 85.1. I found that a little bit surprising. Further down, the Belgian Pro League is in 8th place, ahead of MLS, the Championship in 10th place. The Saudi Pro League, not in the top 20.
I wonder how some would feel about that. So we don't know the criteria.
What do you think George Jesus has to say about
Cristiano? We don't know the criteria. We see power ratings with the algorithm, obviously, but we don't know exactly what's the criteria. Then there's your personal preference. When you watch those leagues, there's leagues that you prefer than others. You prefer the style of football. There's clubs that you prefer in some leagues that would influence you. I don't think La Liga and Liga are on the same level, obviously. I don't even think that Serie A and the Bundesliga are on the same level. I think Serie A is a better league than the Bundesliga. For me, certainly, in all the games that I watch every weekend, like you, Gabi, for me, I would probably go. I would have La Liga higher as well. But then again, if you look at all 20 clubs or 18 clubs, depending on which league, and outside a bit of Real Madrid, Barca, and I guess maybe Atletico Madrid to a certain point, Club de Bilbao, overall, the Serie A might be better than La Liga, for example, this season.
I think one of the metrics that, I mean, they use many different metrics, but I think one key metric that they use is essentially the top to bottom strength of the league.
Yeah.
So in other words, how often do we see teams near the bottom get points against teams on the top?
Which is a very good indicator of the level of your
Some
league.
people say that. So I think that's something that penalizes the Premier League, because for all this talk about competitiveness, blah, 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 in reality, the big six dominate and have always dominated. I mean, I think in the last 25 years, the only three teams outside the top six to finish top four, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jules, are Newcastle did it once, Everton did it once, and I think Leicester did it once. Well, I know.
And Villa?
And Villa now.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of turnover compared to the other.
No.
Right? In France, you've got Brest, finishing top four.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they're not even a football club. They're a body part. So I think that is one of the things that penalizes the Premier League and why the gap is close there. And it certainly penalizes La Liga, where it seems that no matter how bad Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, and Real Madrid are every year, they're always in the top four.
Yeah.
It's just a perception.
Yeah,
Right? But these guys
absolutely.
back it up with numbers.
No, but
Hey,
it's that.
You got a problem with this? Bring it up with Opta, right?
Yeah.
They're on all your social
If
media.
you're Dutch as well, because the Eredivisie is nowhere near that top 10
I think if I
either.
remember correctly, the Eredivisie are 13th.
If you're Dutch, you're not happy if you're one of the Dutch guys. Saudi Arabia were held to a 0-0 draw at home by Bahrain. Gap 2 points in 3 games now for your boy Roberto Mancini.
He is under a lot of pressure.
Ooh.
I believe he is the highest paid
Of course.
national team coach in the world by some
Ever.
distance. And Saudi Arabia, of course, a powerhouse, and they were at the last World Cup. They'll be at the next one. So the Asian qualifying, it seems to go on forever, and there's a million rounds. This is round 3. They're in a group of 6 teams. The top 2 qualify automatically. The next ones go into round 4, where I think 2 of 6 teams qualify, and then there's another round after that.
Yes.
Whatever. Japan has 10 points. Australia, Saudi, Bahrain are all on 5. Indonesia on 3. China on 3. I'm guessing Indonesia and China probably not particularly good. So look, there's plenty of time for them to turn it around, but they may have to go to round 4, which is probably not what they want to do.
Definitely
unless they
not.
can get points off of Australia. I understand why they're angry, and they should be angry. You should be held to account if you make a lot of money.
But he also blamed it on the Saudi Super League now, saying that before, I don't know, he said 80% of my Saudi players were playing in the top flight. Now, with all the foreign players who've come in the last 18 months for this Saudi Pro League, then that's not the case anymore, which he probably has a point, to be fair.
He would play, he's explaining, he's not blaming, but yeah, he's right. And look, this is another age-old argument, like the influence, the more foreign players, I mean, look, the Premier League, I believe, has the among the big 5 leagues, I think is the second highest percentage of foreign players, and they still produce a ton of players.
Yeah.
The argument being is that it makes the players who do play that much better.
Yeah.
My concern in the Saudi Pro League is these guys who brought in, if they mostly all play in the same positions, does that then hurt
Yes.
the Saudi players?
Yeah.
Some people were telling me, oh, don't worry, there's so many great young Saudi players that, if their places get taken over by, the Cristiano Ronaldos of this world, then they'll just move to Europe. Well, no, that hasn't quite happened.
Yeah.
Turkey, gobble, gobble, come from behind to beat Iceland away 4-2. But Jules, this was notable because of a weird Hakan Çalhanoğlu penalty that was scored but then disallowed.
It
Can
was
you just,
disallowed.
I know we don't have the pictures. Go check it out. It was unusual. Describe it.
It's very simple. It happens quite regularly, I think. It's a double touch. So his standing foot, Çalhanoğlu's left foot, which is his standing foot, when he's about to hit the ball with his right foot for the penalty, slips, so touches the ball first, and then his right foot on his follow-up movement, obviously, also touches the ball. So even if the ball goes in, he's touched it twice, which you're not allowed. Somebody has to touch it in between your 2 touches. So it
He
could
ends
be a
up
bit
on his backside.
as well. It could be a bit cruel in a way because the ball still goes in, and I'm not sure how much that bothers the goalkeeper, the double touch, but that's the rule. So yeah, no penalty.
And he hadn't missed a penalty, I think, in a long time.
Yeah, he's the king of.
Well, no, the king. Thanks again to Opta, who've been filling up this international break with stats. Do you know who the best penalty taker since 2021 in Europe, both international and domestic is? I'll give you a hint. He plays in Serie A, but does not play for a big team.
So
And he's been injured for a long time.
He's been
He's
injured.
only missed one penalty in the last 4 years.
Really?
Yes.
He's taken a lot. Like
It's like he's taken I think he's 20 of 21.
okay, go on.
It's Domenico Berardi.
Wow. Okay.
It's an interesting list.
Yeah. I mean,
you
Super
know,
Mario was obviously quite good at it.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
beIN Sports has angered many clubs in Ligue 1, unfortunately, because they still haven't made payments for the rights of the league that they acquired in the summer. We've mentioned that before. But now, we've also discovered something about Euro 2024. And our friend John Texter and Lyon consider that the partnership is void.
That's right. Texter time. Oh, you wanted it. We're giving it to you. Look, I have no idea if he had anything to do with this or if it's his chief executive. But he sounded the alarm. He's saying, like, look, beIN Sport haven't held up their end of the bargain. They paid for one game a week every weekday, and they haven't. They've agreed to it, but they haven't paid it. So now the contract is void. Which is great news because there's so many people queuing up to buy Ligue 1 rights. They can sell it to somebody else to give them more money. There is a bit of a concern here. So reportedly, they've also missed a payment to UEFA for Euro 2024 where they owe the rights. And that's a bit harder to explain within this context. One theory is put out there for them not paying their Ligue 1 deal is that apparently 80% of the deal is payment, but 20% is...
That's right.
The clubs have to promote tourism in Qatar, and every club is supposed to go and send, I guess, a business plan of how they're going to promote tourism in Qatar. Which, okay, can I say something? I think this is really stupid. If I'm Brest, second Brest reference of the show, I'm assuming they probably have you know how Manchester United has more than 1,000 employees? I'm guessing at Brest, other than the footballers and the sporting staff, it's probably 3 people who know nothing about tourism. Because not many people go on holiday to Brest, right? With all due respect.
Brittany is a very popular holiday destination.
Yeah, for English people.
For everyone.
People going to Mont Saint Michel and whatever. Come on, man. I'm a south of France type of guy. Or the Alps, or the French Alps. You want these guys to make a business plan for you about how they're going to promote Qatar tourism? It seems like a stupid pretense. Yeah. Just agree how many banners you're going to have in your stadium, how many signage, whatever. This is embarrassing. I don't know what's going on here. But I do know that they need to pay, and I do know that this all stems, by the way, from Vincent Labrune, he's the head of the French league.
CEO.
Promising that, we're going to get €1 billion in TV rights. Yeah. Instead, I think he's had to settle for roughly half that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is a trend. People, I know we work for a television company. People who blame the television companies, you have so much power, you have all the money. Guys, the business model is changing. Clubs need to be realistic about how much money that they can actually get from us. And I think we said it about beIN Sport, or Qatar in general. Nobody enjoys throwing money into a furnace. And this applies to them. It applies to Abu Dhabi. It applies to the Saudis. At some point, you got to get a return. And at some point, the market corrects itself.